Well, greetings, viewers. Welcome again to Then, Now, and the Future. Last time we looked at the 70s. This time we're moving into the 80s. We're just sort of working out exactly the nature of this project, but it's fairly to do with our personal recollections. So we're not trying to be massively historical in terms of dates and analysis of historical events. So we're looking at it from, looking at our experience of events and what was happening in our lives at that time. I particularly, this time, I'd like to talk about school education. So for me, that was the 70s and it finished in the early 80s. I just wanted to make a few recollections of that. What about you, Marcus?
Let's follow your lead, and we can compare educations, I suppose, because I went to a comprehensive school, but it was the first purpose-built comprehensive school in London. And despite being a comprehensive school, for our full assemblies, when the whole school used to get together for morning assembly, the senior management team, the head teacher and all the senior teachers were all capped and gowned on the stage, despite the fact that we were a comprehensive school. So
really.
So they still maintain those sorts of standards. So it would be interesting to
it brings back something I definitely. So the gowns was also, that was at my school. So well, I think I could start with primary school. I went to a Church of England primary school. What can I say about that? It was connected with the church, so we sometimes went down to the church. We had sort of the building was a modern building at the time, and it's definitely a post-war building, but a sort of flat-roofed structure. And well, I mean, memories are of spelling the word sausage wrongly. I can remember that. Very early memory. It's introduction to the whole issue of the non-phonetic nature of the English language, which now I make a living from, or have been making a living from for 25 years, among other things, I should say. So yeah, we had uniform, and it's something you mentioned already, wearing shorts. We wore shorts at primary school all the time, and we had a sort of blue uniform, wore ties. Okay, you tell me something about your school.
Well, my primary school was a typical London primary school. It was very small, shoehorned into a corner building on a main road in London, one of the arterial roads that went right through London. What do I remember about junior school and primary school? Woodcuts, balsa wood models, tie-dyeing things, country dancing we did.
Yes, that rings a bell for me as well.
And constant repetitions of the times table are the sorts of
remember doing the times table.
Memories from primary and junior school.
And did you have like a playground, playfield, that kind of thing? Was that?
We had a tiny little playground. We had one for the primary school and one for the junior school. The junior playground was marginally bigger than the primary one. I remember playing marbles in the grates.
Yes. We did that. Yeah, playing marbles there was like a hard playground, which you could play like basketball and other games on, but in the breaks we were just there, and you could play marbles there. I remember doing that.
But we played on the drain covers, because these pattern drain covers.
But we had a big open field, which was like a sports, which could be used for football and athletics in the summer. And it had what we called the prefab. There was one classroom, which was like a prefab, sort of up on the top of the slope. I remember morning assembly. which involved religious worship. We had hymns were on there was a big like, what would you call it, flip chart, basically, kind of thing, up on the wall, and there's I don't know how many 100 hymns or something. It was quite heavy duty paper, and they would just, you know, flip those over.
And did you have to say the Lord's Prayer every?
Yes, we did. We did. That's right. So that was standard. And then there were things like nativity play. Yeah, I remember doing the nativity play. You know, you dress up in dressing gowns and a towel, a tea towel around your head, that kind of thing. And then we did musicals. We had quite an active teacher for doing musicals. Like what the religious one I remember was Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat. But we also did, I don't know, other things like Kalinka. There was one called Kalinka, so it was a Russian-based one. So yeah,
what, one of my abiding memories, and going totally off at a tangent from the religious theme, the one and only fight I ever had at school was in junior school.
Oh yes.
And it was with a boy who was in the year below me, and it was smaller than me. And I thought, you know, I've got this. You know, I don't know what the argument was about, but we were going to have a fight after school. And right. I've got this. And the guy absolutely floored me. And when I got home and told my dad, and he gave me such a scolding, because I grew up in Hackney, which is an East London borough, although Stoke Newington is classed as being North London. This young lad came from a very well-known boxing family in the East End.
Oh, right.
And my dad said, no wonder you got trounced. I mean, you know, his family are well known.
Okay.
You know, boxing.
So you hadn't done your research on that one?
Well, I think it took one punch.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was it. So yeah, I got beaten up by a young kid. But these things stay with you, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's it. These particular events. So yeah, okay. Well, that's about. We had, what were these things called? We had diagnostic cards. I was thinking about these things. We had these big boxes of cards, and they had like a reading text on them and comprehension questions underneath. And they went up, you know, started at a lower level and you went up to a higher level.
Okay, I don't recall those.
No, that was just some memory of the sort of English language, I guess. That was that kind of lesson. But really, I think the clearer memories are from secondary, what we call secondary school.
What was your transition like? Because that was a very scary time for me, because I went from this very small, very compact junior school to a secondary school, to a comprehensive school with sort of like 1,600 kids in a huge modern building.
Yeah, that must have been a bit traumatic, was it, in some way?
Yeah, we had a bit of an induction, but not very much. It was it was a bit of a trauma.
Yeah, I can remember the first day was pouring with rain. I remember that, and these bicycle sheds, and they were surrounded by these great pools of water. Now I went to, I'm sure what you call it, independent grammar school. It was something.
Oh, right, okay.
So basically, what they had still, I mean, I don't know what exactly. I think it's pretty much the same situation there. So they don't, in this area, which is the Wirral. Basically, you could go to a grammar school, okay, but that was state funded, secondary modern school, or you could go to effectively a private school, which was where I went. But it wasn't really, I wouldn't say it was a classic public school. And it was, I mean, you probably heard of Manchester Grammar or something like that. It was in this kind of tradition.
Right.
And it was one of these sort of Oxford, Cambridge, what's the word? There must be a word for this, I can't think of it, but trying to get, basically the idea was to get people into Oxford and Cambridge, and you know, so it's very academic.
Feeder schools.
Feeder school, yeah, maybe that's it. Very academic style. And I think one, now I don't think a particularly good aspect of it was they had, I was in this sort of fast track where they would even miss out a year. This is what they did. They missed out the 5th year, right? So that you could do you had some extra time to do the Oxbridge exams or something.
Wow.
So it was just a very academic, it was a boys only school. It was very academic. It was quite strict, I think, compared to other places. So yeah, but I don't remember it as being sort of traumatic. It was fairly, you know, you were fairly, I don't know, well organized, I think, something like that.
Did you still have physical punishment then?
I think there was, you know, I think some people were, you know, that they were caned, you know, they would go to the head. It must have been the sort of end of it. I never received that, but I just think I heard about people who did. So it was sort of towards the end about that. And what about you? I suppose that was still going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was never caned. I was slippered once by the PT master, which I'm guessing was almost as bad as being caned.
So what did he do?
Yeah, you just got hit over the backside with one of the sports shoes that you.
Oh yes.
So you were slippered rather than.
Oh, slippered. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember that being very painful.
Yes.
But yeah, people were saying, and it wasn't the headmaster. It was we had a senior master and a senior mistress who were responsible. Part of their responsibilities was discipline.
Yes, I remember something similar.
So the senior mistress, if she thought the girls were wearing skirts that were too short, would get them kneeling on the floor to make sure that their skirts sort of were touching the floor.
Right.
They were the right length.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I remember my mother had bought me, the boys were allowed to wear either blue shirts or white shirts as part of the uniform. And my mother had gone to the local market and had seen some shirts on offer, and they were a silvery blue. They weren't a proper blue. And I was walking down the stairs one day, and the senior master passed me, and all he said in my ear as he walked past was, "Make sure you wear the right colour shirt tomorrow, Credence."
Oh right.
And that's all he needed to say. And my mother was so upset because she'd bought these shirts for me for school and I wasn't allowed to wear them.
Yeah.
But that's all he needed to say, and it was just very quietly in my ear as he passed me on the stairs. But yes, the senior masters were responsible for doling out the discipline.
Yeah. So I can remember that. I can remember. Well, I mean, I remember so much. I mean, you know, from those days. The science laboratory.
Something that would be unheard of, because again, we were a central London school, so we had quite a large playground, but it was a concrete playground. We were bussed once a week. Each year was bussed once a week out to Essex, Fairlop in Essex, to a huge playing field, you know, playing club.
Oh, that's where you did sports.
Where we did, you know, sort of, they had tennis courts and football and rugby courts, and pitches, and so it was a massive open space with very old-fashioned changing rooms and showers. But there would be several coaches to take the entire year.
Oh right. Yeah,
and that happened for each year. It must have cost an absolute fortune.
Right.
To be this convoy of coaches taking us kids off.
Yes, our playing fields were a walking distance. There was, like, in the middle of the school, there was like a cricket pitch basically, and hockey. I think cricket and hockey were played actually on the grounds of the school, but everything else was a walk away, not so far away.
So you said your school was quite academic, but were they into sports as well?
Yeah, it was also it was quite important, you know, rugby, in the winter, cricket in the summer.
Did
None,
trained properly in rugby? Because I remember our school had a really, really good rugby team,
yes.
but I'm not quite sure how the kids got trained for that, because I remember on the days where we went and we played rugby, we had no training in how to tackle or anything else. Because of my size, I used to play hooker right in the middle of the
Oh,
scrum.
right. Yeah.
All I remember was putting my arms up, for the props, and my feet would come off the ground.
Yes.
Because they were so.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. Oh, no, it was all very serious. As I remember I can remember the PE teachers. They were very serious, really pretty tough guys, and they were, training people. I can remember pretty hard way. I was second row in the scrum, but I fairly soon decided that I didn't really want to go down the rugby road. Just I wasn't into the sort of the injury danger. I just saw that one day, something's going to happen. So I did join the cross country team.
Right.
I spent the rest of my time running around the neighborhood, and I was in the team. So we went off to schools all over northwest England.
Yes, I mean, I wasn't terribly good at sport, and we did cross country if the pitches were too wet to play on.
Okay.
And it was more of a road run than a cross country. But I remember one day I did exceptionally well, and I came second.
Oh, really?
I came second, and on the basis of that, the sportsmaster put me in for the school sports day to represent my house.
Okay.
And was absolutely livid because of a few days, the weekend before, I'd taken part in a charity walk for my youth club, and we'd done a 10-mile walk or something.
Right.
And my feet had got really badly blistered.
Oh, right.
And I had to go to school with a note from my mother saying I'm not able to run.
Oh, no.
Could barely. And he was absolutely livid. Your one chance, Credence, to represent your house and do something in sport, and you've cried off. And he was furious.
Oh, yeah.
But I did it for charity, sir. I don't care.
Yeah, so that was sport. I liked cricket, but I wasn't particularly good at it. I wasn't good enough to get into any sort of team or anything. And what else do I remember? I remember coming back to the sort of slightly religious angle. This also was a Church of England establishment. It had a chaplain. So there was a teacher who was basically a chaplain. There was a chapel, which was a sort of sort of, I don't know if you say it was mock Gothic. It was just a typical sort of not in all. It couldn't house all the school. So there was basically assembly was divided half and half. Half the school was in the chapel and half was in the, I think, what was it called? Big hall or something. It was an assembly hall anyway. Big school. That's what it was called. Big school, which was in fact the hall. And it was like the Book of Common Prayer Service. It had the Psalms of David. They were said or sung, I can't remember. And there was a reading and stuff. So it was quite, it was sort of old style Church of England type thing. And I once got kicked out. The chaplain. I don't know. I think I was talking to someone on the back row or something. I thought it was very discreet or whatever, but he stopped the whole service to send me you on the back row. That was one of my biggest crimes at school. And I was sent out, and I had to see the headmaster and stuff.
Yeah, I think I credit my secondary school with the start of my public speaking. Because,
oh yes.
Like you, when we had our full assembly, because once a week the whole school got together, but during the rest of the week we had denominational assemblies. We had quite a large Jewish population, Christian, and various others. So we had denominational services, but our assembly hall was like a theatre. So it had a big apron stage. It had fixed seating downstairs, and then it had a balcony running, a two-tiered balcony running three sides round the auditorium. And we had psalms and all the rest of it, but we also had a Bible reading.
Yes.
And from year one, my very first year, the drama teacher responsible for looking after the kids who did the Bible readings, for some reason decided I was a good candidate. And I was incorporated into this group from whom she selected who was doing the Bible reading. So I'd only been at the school, I think, 6 months. I was still in year one.
Yes.
When I had to be on the stage with all the head teachers and the head boy and the head girl and all the wig, caps and gowns and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was little me having to do this Bible reading, an old-fashioned Bible, one of those thick, old-fashioned
Oh, right. Oh, really?
on
Yes.
a lectern. And I was at, I think the lectern came up to about there on me.
Yeah.
But all the way through my school career, I was doing Bible readings to the massed throngs of about 16.
Oh, really? Right the way through?
Yeah, I mean, not every week, because
it was a sort of,
we got rotated.
Yeah.
But yes, so I got, and the drama teacher was an ex-RADA lady, and yeah, I still remember the coaching. In fact, the coaching techniques and tips that she gave me then are tips that I now pass on to the clients who I work with on public speaking.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember we had to do things for the assembly, and one of the things was based on, do you know this book, How to Meet Friends? What is it? Make Friends and Influence
How to Make Friends and Influence People. Yeah.
And we did some presentation based on that. I can remember that. I think at the inspiration of one of the teachers, he was a geography teacher. He liked this book, so we had some sort of guidance in that. So, and then I remember I did something about some rock music. I don't know. I mean, it was so out of keeping with that was a tension, I have to say, in those days, this sort of culture that I was sort of involved in outside school and the school culture, which was very straight-laced. Headmaster was he was a Welshman from a sort of Calvinistic background,
right?
Quite a severe guy, and he got us to learn the Sermon on the Mount. Actually, something I'm very grateful to him for. We had to learn like 6 verses. If it was your turn, you had to learn them and recite them. So every week it would be a new person who did the next 6 verses. But anyway, I was like on the edge of things in terms of like I let my hair grow, and he would make comments about this. And I once did this thing with this there was this teacher who was more liberal, and he allowed us to do, and we did this presentation, which really wasn't, it was just about some rock music in it, but it wasn't in keeping at all with the whole thing. But I don't know, strange things happened. So I guess now you can give a presentation about anything. I should think it's a very different atmosphere.
Yes, it's surprising how, because I remember, again, I don't know if you had this sort of stuff. We had quite a lot of bullying at our school. So I think, like a lot of kids, I received my fair share of bullying that made life a bit uncomfortable. But lots of things that I remember that I sort of thoroughly enjoyed doing and being part of.
Yeah, I think bullying was not characteristic of our school. I think because of this sort of strict, almost sort of military. We actually were all in cadets. There were different kinds of, you could be in the Army, Navy, or Air Force cadets, and that was another thing. So it wasn't characteristic, I don't think, because it was just so sort of regimented, the whole thing.
So did you live in, or was it a day school? Or?
It was basically day, although there were some boarders, yeah. So it had that sort of tradition of boarding, but most people were day boys, coming from that, sort of around 10-mile radius or whatever it was.
Sure.
Um,
And did you then go on to university, or did you go?
yeah, that's it. So we have this sort of fast streaming thing. So that meant I missed out the 5th year and did the 6, the lower 6 and the upper 6. And then there was this Oxbridge exam. Yeah, so how did that work out? So that's it. We did the A level. So we did A levels a year early, and then we did, yeah, that's it. We did A levels a year early, and we did the Oxbridge exam the following autumn. And that was it, you know. And then you would wait, and then you were basically finished in wherever it was, November or whenever it was. And then, you know, you had basically a year free. That was it. You were almost a gap year was forced on you.
Which uni did you get in?
Of course, I didn't go to Oxford. I did go to Cambridge, but for various reasons, it didn't work out. I went for interview there, Sydney Sussex College. I went for interview, but it didn't. I went to Bristol. That's where I ended up. And in the meantime, I had a year out. Sort of went and worked in the South Coast near Bournemouth, and I went to Malaysia for a month. So I had quite a good year out, I'd say.
Wow. So Malaysia sounds.
Yeah. Well, my friend, his brother was a helicopter pilot, working out there in South China Sea, Ulrichs. So he said, just come. All you need to do is buy the ticket. You can stay with us. So for a month we stayed there. It was a great experience. Went to Singapore. We went to Thailand. You know, so I saw quite a lot. And that tied in with sort of spiritual issues, which I think perhaps on a later discussion we can get into.
Yeah, because that's an aspect of life that's quite important to you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So that's been a sort of driving force. I think it started in this period, really, in my teens, around my 16th birthday, that I began to sort of question just living without just like this routine. You know, I was looking for something more than just, you know, schools and parties and whatever. So that started around that time, and I think that trip to the Far East was very, you know, pivotal.
Yeah, it's a discussion for another time, but I think we can have quite an interesting discussion around religion.
Yes,
because we come from very different religious backgrounds.
of course.
While it's an aspect of life that's still important to you, I've gone very much the other way, where I had quite a religious upbringing, but it's no longer something that I feel I attach a great.
Yeah, good. Well, I think that would be a good topic.
You know, so I think that's a really interesting topic for discussion at a
yeah, because mine's the opposite. My family wasn't religious, you know, so.
Oh, so we come from totally different.
That's right. So we went, you know, opposite direction. Yeah, great. Okay. Well, anyway, so today we've sort of, I think that was good. You know, we talked about something from really entirely from our personal experience. Didn't really get into the dates and the big events. But I mean, is there anything you wanted to just, maybe you wanted to talk about something on that respect today?
I think just one, again, purely because it was something that I was closely involved with. But
oh, yes.
If we're talking about the 80s, one of the standout things for me was the fire that destroyed Alexandra Palace.
Yeah.
An iconic building. It stands on the top of a hill, top of Muswell Hill in North London. You can see it for miles and miles around. And it was the birthplace of television. And the very first TV programs were sent out from there. The building was owned by the London Borough of Haringey, and I was head of public relations for them. And I can't remember what day of the week it was, but back in the day when you still had afternoon tea breaks, and we had a canteen on the top floor of the Civic Centre with a nice little lounge from which you could see across that part of London, and you could see Alexandra Palace. And there was a group of us having our tea and biscuits in the lounge and just chatting. And we looked up, and there was this plume of black smoke
really?
coming from the top of the palace. And yeah, okay, that doesn't look like it ought to be there.
Something amiss. Yeah.
And along with our emergency planning officer, I went beetling up there, and the building was just massively on fire.
Yeah.
So we were probably a few hundred yards away, and you could feel the intense heat from the building.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a fireman on an extension ladder with a hose,
Mhm.
going into the building, and thinking, how on earth can he stand the heat? Because we're hundreds of yards away, and you
Yeah.
can feel the intensity.
Right.
It was a fire that attracted international attention.
Mhm. Mhm.
We had media from around the world wanting information. We took them all on tours round the district. About a third to a half of the building got destroyed,
Mhm.
and it's all subsequently been rebuilt, and there are now all sorts of major events that take place there. And it was just one of those things that you suddenly think, wow, I was sort of like part of history, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I guess a lot of people, I don't, yeah, it was such a valuable place that they wanted to keep it going despite that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it cost millions to rebuild.
Mhm.
And Haringey Council did not have a terribly good reputation. They were an extreme left-wing
Yes.
council.
Yes.
They were known as loony left.
Yes, I remember this terminology.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it might not surprise you to know that it counted amongst its members people like Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I got to see him close up and personal
Yeah.
when he was still making his way as a local councillor. But they didn't have a terribly good reputation, and the project for rebuilding Ali Pali, obviously, yeah, the budget for rebuilding Ali Pali just overran by massive amounts. So I don't think the council owns it any longer. I'm not up to date with its current situation, other than it's rebuilt and functioning, and I think we're all very glad to see it.
Good. I must go and have a look. I haven't been there for ages. I'll have a look at it one day again.
Yeah.
Okay, Marcus. Well, I think that's it for today.
Yep.
So
Another fascinating conversation.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you
been
so
a great
much.
chat, and we'll carry on next week, all being well.
Absolutely. I'll see you back then.
See you then.
Cheers. Take care.
All right. Cheers.